Welcome to datascience.show, the podcast where data science meets executive leadership. We talk with top AI and analytics thought leaders about turning data into real business impact. If you're a C-level leader or data expert shaping the future, you're in the right place.
Imagine this. A personalization engine nudges product recommendations. Customers start clicking more, and the business celebrates rising engagement. Only one problem. 6 months later, a cohort emerges that behaves differently. Margins slip, and churn for that cohort doubles. Finance asks hard questions. Product says, "We didn't see this coming." Now the board is asking whether adaptive AI accelerated revenue or quietly accelerated risk. I want to talk about that invisible tax, feedback loop debt, and how executives can detect it, dollarize it, and control it before it becomes a multi-quarter problem. Today, I'll offer a practical, decision-first playbook you can use in the next 30 to 90 days. From models to measurable value. That's the promise.
My frame is simple. Adaptive systems amplify both upside and downside. If you don't treat loop exposure like fundable debt, you'll pay interest in the form of margin erosion, reputational harm, and lost runway. This episode is not about model math. It's about decisions you can make, what telemetry to demand, how to translate loop behavior into dollars, and which remediation lanes to fund first. Think of this as a board-ready briefing you can hand to your product, finance, and legal teams.
First, a compact taxonomy, so we all mean the same thing. There are 4 common loop types I see in the field. 1. Instrumentation bias. Your logging, sampling, or measurement feeds the model the wrong signal, and the model optimizes what you measure, not what you value. 2. Behavioral reinforcement. The product changes user behavior, and the model then rewards that changed behavior, which compounds the shift. 3. Economic feedback. Pricing, promotions, or campaign automation adjust in response to model outputs and create circular incentives. Think automated repricing that accelerates price erosion. 4. Transitive loops. Multiple models or services influence each other indirectly. Recommendation drives engagement, which changes data used by churn prediction, which in turn alters retention interventions. Each of these can self-reinforce if left unchecked.
A couple of short, anonymized vignettes to make this concrete. Example 1. An online marketplace tuned recommendations for higher immediate purchase likelihood. Over months, it amplified a set of items tailored to heavy buyers. The model's success changed browsing patterns. Light buyers saw fewer diverse items and felt less value. Cohort economics worsened and churn rose. Example 2. A dynamic pricing engine that adjusted prices based on demand forecasts. As it learned to shape prices to win conversions, competitors reacted, and marketing shifted budget, leading to a price spiral where gross margin per order declined faster than forecasts predicted. Both scenarios started with a small signal and then compounded into meaningful business harm.
So how do you detect these loops early? Executives should demand a handful of lightweight signals, nothing fancy, just disciplined and auditable. First, population elasticity. Are different cohorts reacting differently to the same treatment over time? Track treatment lift by cohort and watch elasticity change. Second, uplift erosion curves. When you plot treatment effect over time, does uplift decay faster than expected? Third, cohort backfill and replay checks. Do new cohorts look similar when you backtest older policies? Fourth, treatment response drift. Are the users who respond today the same as those who responded historically? Finally, sample-based causal checks. Small, randomized probes that verify whether the personalization actually causes the observed behavior. These are signals you can ask your analytics team or vendor to produce on a weekly cadence.
Executives don't need raw AUC numbers. They need dollars. Here's a simple, conservative way to dollarize loop impact so finance will engage. Step 1. Measure loop velocity, the rate at which a key metric shifts attributable to the adaptive flow. For example, monthly % change in cohort churn linked to personalization exposure. Step 2. Convert velocity into margin impact. Apply average contribution margin per user to the incremental churn or margin erosion. Step 3. Estimate remediation cost. Operational effort,
model retraining, customer recovery campaigns, and lost opportunity during freezes. Present a conservative 90-day window and flag uncertainty bands plus a 30-day validation period. This yields a funding ask. We estimate XK dollars of near-term margin at risk plus YK dollars to pilot mitigation. Recommend funding the pilot to avoid Z dollars loss in runway. Frame it as conservative and ready for reconciliation.
Once you detect and dollarize, prioritize remediation across 4 lanes: immediate containment, throttle adaptive rates, add rate limits to policy changes, or freeze affected cohorts. Compensating controls, human-in-the-loop checks for high-impact decisions, protected compensating cohorts that receive a manual policy and rollback gates. Medium-term fixes, reweighting, bias-corrected training data, adjusted reward functions, and a disciplined retrain cadence with validation on holdout cohorts. Redesign patterns, decompose monolithic adaptivity, move high-risk decisions into conservative, constrained modules, or introduce anti-feedback architecture, such as dual models, where one predicts behavior and another predicts feedback sensitivity. Start with the containment ladder: alert, protected cohort, temporary freeze only when multiple signals cross thresholds. That graded approach avoids unnecessary slowdown while protecting value.
You also need governance and procurement levers, so teams and vendors can't ship adaptive behavior unchecked. Contract clauses I recommend: access to loop telemetry and weekly exposure dashboards, attestation that model updates include backtest artifacts, guaranteed rollback rights with a defined SLA, and performance-linked contracts where vendor fees are partially tied to post-deployment cohort economics. Require vendors to document minimal telemetry fields, treatment ID, cohort ID, exposure timestamp, and measured outcome, so your analytics can independently verify loop signals. On the buy side, insist on explicit acceptance criteria for adaptive changes before production rollout.
Okay, a 90-day pilot blueprint you can start tomorrow. Week 02, pick one high-value adaptive flow, recommendation, repricing, or content ranking, and define the KPI you care about plus a conservative margin impact metric. Week 2 to 4, instrument minimal telemetry fields and implement one small randomized probe to measure causal lift. Week 4 to 8, run an exploit-style backtest and calculate loop velocity and a conservative dollar at risk estimate. If signals cross your thresholds, exercise the containment ladder. Week 8 to 12, implement compensating controls and a retrain cadence or a redesign patch, then brief the board with a one-page feedback loop register, exposure, dollar at risk, remediation plan, and decision ask. Budget telemetry costs into the pilot and require privacy review upfront. The goal is a reproducible playbook, not a big bang rewrite.
Leadership and culture matter here. Who owns loop risk? My recommendation? A triage owner, typically a senior product or data leader who chairs a weekly loop review with product, engineering, finance, and legal. Change control norms. Every adaptive policy needs a short acceptance package, expected uplift, failure modes, rollback plan, and telemetry checklist before release. Incentives. Align product and engineering KPIs to longer-term cohort health, not just short-term lift. That avoids the classic trap where local optimization creates systemic feedback that hurts overall business value.
3 executive actions to take this week. 1. Pick one adaptive flow and fund a 90-day pilot with telemetry and a small causal probe. 2. Ask your vendor and internal teams for the 5 detection signals I described on a weekly cadence and a conservative dollar at risk estimate with a 30-day validation window. 3. Add minimal contract language, telemetry access, rollback rights, and performance linkage. Do those things and you convert invisible risk into fundable, governable work. If you do nothing, the system will keep optimizing for what it measures, and you'll be paying the interest on that debt. If you want a practical artifact to take straight to the board, subscribe to datascience.show. We've built a one-page feedback loop register you can use to brief stakeholders quickly. Turn this invisible tax into a funded prevention agenda. That's the difference between models and value.
Thanks for listening to datascience.show. If you found value in this episode, subscribe, share it with your network, and join us next time as we explore how data science drives smarter decisions and better business outcomes.